Welcome back to Open Your Eyes. We're moving now into our third and final segment for the morning. Now, this conversation will surround World Mental Health Day, which will be celebrated on October 10th. That's a Sunday, by the way. And the importance of mental health, and of course, the activities that are planned to celebrate that day. In to tell us all about it, we've got Katia Esquivel, of course, Secretary there at Mental Health Association, and of course, Amy Jex, who is a counselor and the President of Mental Health Association. Ladies, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Taking part in this conversation too.
Yeah.
Primarily, mental health is definitely something that we need to continue to work on as a country. As we progress, we notice that things are getting worse for some. We're in a pandemic. It's getting worse for some. Amy, primarily the importance of mental health.
Well, that's why the theme was chosen by the Mental Health Federation worldwide, because the theme this year is mental health in an unequal world. And we can see the effects in Belize this year, not just with people who have mental health concerns, but we see a rise in anxiety countrywide in individuals. We see more cases of suicide. We have more depression as well. So we've seen an increase in other diagnoses that we wouldn't usually see. And one of the biggest things that we didn't notice is how do we address concerns for people who don't even have a history of mental health.
Yes.
So we see there is not access, there aren't enough resources, but also we have a situation, Ms. Kathy and I were discussing this morning, of someone with a health issue, and where do you go? You get stressed out over not being able to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
And that's a mental health concern, and that is an impact that is addressed by this theme, because it is an unequal world.
Yeah.
If you have finances, if you have family connections, you're more likely to get more support. So what about the people who don't have those things?
Yeah.
And this is what we are doing our speech competition this year to focus on this topic, mental health in an unequal world.
Yeah.
Now, the speech competition is usually one that is a hallmark of your commemoration of World Mental Health Day. And I know you're going to be asking for video submissions matching the theme. But before we dive too deep into that, I do want to kind of just do a big picture check. We know that there are still aspects to the pandemic that are yet to be dealt with. And a big part of that is how it will impact our mental health. We see some of the immediate effects today, but it's also what kind of stress and trauma will we be facing next year or 5 years from now. Let's talk about that from your points of view as representatives of the Mental Health Association, given the limited access that Belizeans are afforded to mental health care.
Well, that's one issue. But the other issue is all kinds of changes in the dynamics of families. We see there's also been an increase in domestic violence.
Yeah.
We have children who have not been going to school, and especially young teens might never go back to school. And all of these things are going to have an impact on mental health. So it's not just that you won't be able to access the services, it's the other changes that won't be undone. And of course, young teens that don't go back to school, you'll have the issue of joining gangs, especially for boys, early onset pregnancy for girls. And so I think that we have to recognize that all of these things are going to affect everything, including mental health. So I think the stability of many families who have been struggling but managing, but their finances have been shot. And so all of these issues are going to be affecting mental health in the long run.
Even children, the younger children, and when we talk about developmental needs, socialization is important for that. There's what that the question is yet to be answered, what impact these 2 years out of school is going to have on these children.
Definitely, we have 3, 5, 7-year-olds who don't have the typical socialization.
Yeah.
So we end up with children who are living in quarters with close people. They're very comfortable, so they don't develop, those regular social norms that we have. Say excuse me to the stranger, those
Yeah.
kinds of
Yeah.
things.
Learning boundaries, yeah.
Exactly. And as you progress through the developmental stages, you see preteens don't have the regular norming they would have, standard 5, standard 6 students. Like, how do you socialize? And when you hit that puberty stage and you want to spend time with friends, and that's what we don't realize as teenagers, that's the whole point. The whole point is to get away from your family and to spend more time with people your age.
Yeah.
And they're not having the opportunity in the way they can. And so people say, well, my child is always on the video game, or my child is always on the phone. And we start to realize that that's how the socializing is, because everyone socializes on, on Xbox. That's where on the PlayStation, that's where your social network is now. And on the phone, you have all the different social media that teenagers use as well. And those are their outlets. That's how they get away from their family. But it doesn't look like socializing to us.
Yeah.
But it is for them. And that's the main means that they have to socialize.
And I think that that's such a critical reminder to parents right now, because isn't it that preteen phase where they learn more from their friends than they do from their parents? Like that's what they're relying on to be able
From
to.
around standard 5 till around maybe 20 years old.
Yeah.
Your friends tend to be more important than your family, which is why we have so much bullying around that age.
Yeah.
Because you want to impress the people your age, and you want to make an impact on them. You want to be accepted by your peers. And so when you don't have peers, you kind of grow up in an isolated way, and again, that limits how you socialize.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and I'm speaking from the perspective as a parent who has a child in standard 5. For while a child does have their social network on the computer, it still brings to mind something else for the parent. Because for myself as a parent and my child not really wanting to be around, it does do something mentally for me. And I'd like to reach out to you, Amy, or to Mrs. Esquivel, as a parent who, as a parent who find him or herself in that position. What do we do? How do we cope with that? This is a big question, because it does work.
He wants some free counseling.
Because there's a need for mental health.
There's a lot of parents with this right now as we speak.
Do I leave my child's door open? Can they only use electronics around me? Miss Kathy, how did you deal with teenagers?
I can't remember.
So that is the takeaway. There will be someday when this will be a problem.
Yeah.
And
But that's something that you're going to deal with, COVID or no COVID.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to know. It's sometimes hard to let go. Your whole job is to raise your child to be independent, but it's hard for you to let go. So if you've done your job well, you will feel pain.
Especially when you're going from that standard 2, standard 3 child who's always hugging you, always wanting your attention.
So loving.
And now in standard 5, they're like, I don't have time for you.
Yeah.
That is
They
so
stay
true.
away. They're right there in their devices.
That is something I think most parents experience.
Yeah.
That is something that is a universal, this is who I am. As your child develops his or her identity, or as children develop their identities, they start to explore other things. That's when they get into their different music. That's when they start to explore fashion. That's when they start to explore, different shows and magazines and those kinds of things. They start to develop their interests around that point. So you really want to encourage them. And just as curious as they were when they were 7, 8, 10, that's what you want to encourage now. Try something new, explore something new. What is the best way to get your hair bright orange, Maybe something temporary, nothing permanent. But you want to allow them to express themselves, to explore their area. And that's one of the main issues COVID has caused, that they can't go hang out with friends. You don't want them to spend, you know, a sleepover because you're concerned not about the other families, but because,
COVID,
because, you know, we want to know what is happening in their lives. And I think that is the transition Miss Kathy was talking about.
Yeah.
Learning to understand that you've taught your child well and you need to trust them.
Yeah.
So that's one level, talking about the impact on children, but I do want to just talk about what the association is doing, what types of discussions are happening to help specific vulnerable populations. And the one that comes to mind after last week's interview with the nurses is looking at our healthcare professionals. They are working long hours under extreme stress, and they're dedicating time and seeing people pass. You know, has there been any support offered to the healthcare workers? What are you, as an association of mental health professionals or advocates, talking about in how you fit into this equation?
Before COVID, burnout was very prevalent in the medical community as well. So this is something that there are techniques, we have had conversations before. Lately, what we have been doing, not so much through the Mental Health Association, because the Mental Health Association does not offer direct services.
Okay.
We try to advocate. So we have been talking to different professionals and professional organizations. So we are in the early stages of professional psychological society with different practitioners. So we're trying to get that as an NGO off the ground. So we come together as one united front. We have been reaching out as individuals since last year. I know in several of our cases as professionals, we have been reaching out to the mental health professionals working directly with COVID and COVID patients to provide support for them. And I keep hearing, you know, we have concerns, we don't have time, our schedules are you know. So what we're trying to do right now is, as professionals, come together and working along, like I said, with the professional counselors and working along with Mind Health Connect. And so we're piggybacking onto and even working along with the services, including what the mental health unit offers as well as the counseling center. So we will come up with a plan over the next few weeks as to how to best address it. Even before there was this call out on the media, we anticipated these issues because I said burnout is a very big part of crisis management. And we have been in a crisis and our bodies get exhausted. So when we do crisis management, it's initial, but we have to figure long term. And so in order to provide something sustainable, because like you said, Marlene, the mental health effects won't go away, not with our frontline workers, which include police and the medical professionals, but also in our community. I wrote a post a week ago about 9/11 and how it impacts me, because I was living, you know, I saw the effects on how it had affected people, you know. And years later, it's not just people who were in New York City who lost people, but we have people like me who was impacted by what the meaning was. And and so right now, it's not just the people who have had COVID, because that is one area as well. Because COVID is a new virus, we haven't been able to study it. It literally started about 2 years ago. And so we don't know what the long-term health effects will be, and so we will continue those. From what we understand, there might be some organ being affected. And so how do you live with that, having no family history of these things?
Even
and
things like brain fog. I know people who recovered from COVID-19 and are frustrated with themselves because of the brain fog that they experience, or memory issues.
Exactly. And so we're looking at people as a whole. We're looking at the community, but the most important thing we have to remember is we have to have a long-term sustainable approach. And so as our mental health resources have been growing over the last few years, we need to inject a level of crisis management into it as well, but it has to be sustainable and it has to be something that we can provide with professional care, you know?
Yeah, and I think for me, the thing that seems to be evident after talking with people in the healthcare system is that there is going to be some level of PTSD
Definitely.
that they will have to be able to address. But moving, and I'm jumping from vulnerable population to vulnerable population, Ms. Kathy, as I see your mask as well, we are reminded that there are, or homeless population or mentally ill population who access services through the Welcome Resource Center. Let's talk a bit about what's happening there.
Okay. Well, it's still going. It's in its 9th year now. And as you say, we provide social support because, again, people often look at medical support, which is there. But people need social support. Now, we have been working hard to make sure that all our population has access to masks, knows how to use them, and also is vaccinated. So we're still working on that.
How do you get someone who is mentally ill to agree to get vaccinated? What's the protocol there? Like your participants
like
at the
with
resource
anyone
center?
else.
Yeah.
The first thing is you have to persuade them that it's necessary, which is not that difficult, but you have to provide access. So very often, these are not people that will pick themselves up and take themselves. I'll get it. But so we've had to make sure that we have access, that people will provide the vaccine for them or get them to where they can get it. So
and in cases of consent, I believe we've contacted family members as well.
Family members, So we've done that. So we just, of course, our funding has been reduced because typically the people who help us have their own economic worries. And so that's a major concern for us.
And your fundraiser, you weren't able to have your fundraiser?
We weren't able to have our yearly fundraiser. Last year we had a telethon, which was great, but it's a horrendous amount of work. And we're a volunteer group. We all have other jobs or whatever. So funding is an issue.
But you did mention while we were off camera, in terms of meeting with your peers, has become much more easier now, especially in terms of reaching to district to district because of on Zoom. So how is that going for you? And
okay, well, what we wanted to stress today is that one of the things the Mental Health Association does, because we're an advocacy group, is we try to reach out to different people. And young people, as we said, people don't want to listen to each other. And so if we want to get mental health messages to young people, we want young people to be telling young people. And so we have this speech competition. And because of that, we have young people who give speeches, and hopefully their peers will listen to them. And this will be the 10th year, and we've had fantastic, I mean, the speeches that these young people have given over the years have been of a very, very high caliber. And then their classmates come in to listen to and what we do is we encourage them to also, whether they win or not, but each of the contestants gives a speech at their own, either their church service or whatever school grouping they have. But of course this year, well, last year we couldn't do it at all. And this year, we also can't do it. So we decided to go with a video contest.
That's so cool.
And one of the good things about that is that it will make it, we have had children from districts other than Belize, but it's hard for them.
Yes.
And even when they come in, they can't usually bring a class to come in with them.
Yeah.
But so with the video contest, it's the same kind of rules, between 5 and 8 minutes. And we have the theme, mental health in an unequal world. And then when people register, which they can do either through, well, the information is there.
Yeah.
And so the deadline is this week. Once they register, then we will send them all of the rules.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you send an email to mentalhealthassociation@gmail.com, and you will get the information that is
Registration
necessary.
form,
Yeah.
the rules, and we'll also have you pick a subtopic.
Yeah.
So how mental health in an unequal world affects maybe domestic violence, or how it affects people with chronic illnesses like diabetes,
Yeah.
or how it, you know.
So similar
we
to what
break
we're
it
doing this
down.
morning, just different groups have a different voice
Yeah.
because
Right.
they have a different perspective.
And so we're hoping that way as well,
Yeah.
we'll be able to cover a whole range of different areas.
Yeah.
And then we'll do a judging, we'll have professional judges. Now, as we say, we are mostly concerned with the content.
Okay.
And so our professional judges will be judging, most of the marks will be on the content. But of course, there will also be for presentation and whatever.
Okay.
And then when we've chosen the best ones, we're going to have a public
Like a screening.
screening. And then the judges' marks will count for like 80%,
Nice.
but then people will be able to text in.
Okay.
to vote for
I'm
which
so
ones
glad
they
you
like.
said that because I wanted to ask that question since I found out it was a video competition. We're talking about an unequal world, and there's unequal access to technology for video, and some people who are far better skilled versus others. So if I send kind of just a homemade video, a phone, maybe not the best quality, and I put my all into my speech versus someone who got all the bells and
Professional this and
whistles,
that, yeah.
you know, the editing necessary. What's the competition like?
Yeah.
Well, as I say,
Yeah.
the bulk of the score is on what you're actually saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So if
content
you
that you're
have
On the
if you
delivering.
have the bells and whistles with the content, then it will get aired. But if it's only bells and whistles and no content, then you might not
Nice.
even make it to the final stages where
Okay.
people can vote for your video.
Okay. And of course, you also get that opportunity whereby people listen to your content and
Right.
do their judging
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Which is the additional 20% part of this thing.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
And what are the prizes involved?
We're still,
I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. So the prizes will be announced at a later date.
and if anybody would
but
like to
sponsors are
offer a
welcome.
Yeah.
prize,
Yeah.
feel
The
free.
reason why we haven't been able to get prizes as yet is because from last year we had a little bit of an issue. The person who always calls has been calling this year as well. But again, it's very tough for our supporters to be
for the business
supporting
sector.
us in different ways. And so we have always had a strong system of supporters, and we really appreciate what they're doing. And we have some supporters who have never stopped
Yeah.
despite all of this.
Yeah.
And so we just have to be more creative in reaching out to others as well.
Yeah.
And we have a little bit of time because we pushed back the deadlines a bit. So the deadline for registration is at the end of the month. And so we will be reviewing after that. We're hoping to get different levels of prizes for the participants as well.
All right.
And the age group you're looking at?
We are looking mostly for 15 to 22. We'll have those. We have a couple entrants as well. We have younger high school students who are very interested in the topic. So we are open to people who are interested. So we have had some reach out from younger people than 15 who are
Okay.
willing to provide. So we're again looking to see another category there.
Okay.
But at the end, we really appreciate the people who are looking into it. We already have 8 participants, and we only launched last week.
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah.
we're looking to get several more. And countrywide, I think, would be the most important thing, because if we can get someone who is from a vulnerable population
Yeah.
to speak about how mental health has been challenging to them in
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
vulnerable situation, then we get a more range of voices. Additionally, we were able to do this. Usually we go through the high schools, and that would limit us to maybe 8 or 9 speakers per year. But because we don't want to put pressure on the schools themselves, we are taking this on outside of the schools, and we are accepting people in high school, outside of high school, just within that age range.
Excellent. Yeah.
Well, it did
yeah.
say on an unequal world, so it touches everybody.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
No, and I think that there are a lot of people out there who have a voice, who want to be heard. A plus side too is that if your fear is public speaking, but you have something you want to say, this is
This
perfect.
is a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you can even, it is a speech,
Yeah.
but unlike a speech where you get up and if you mess up, you mess up.
True.
But if you mess up, you can just
do it
do it
again.
again.
Yeah.
And if you know a good editor,
No.
you can do it in pieces.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Originality is great as well. I think that would be a
Definitely.
great
We're looking
criteria.
forward to people who
You can
use props. And,
props and things, but it is a speech competition.
Yeah.
So content
So
is
the
king.
props have to go with the speech.
But, yeah.
and to
Okay.
piggyback on what the previous presenter was saying, let's remember that this is an opportunity to do research.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your personal research. This is an opportunity for public speaking and presentation.
Yeah.
And it is, it really speaks toward that curiosity that is very important in STEM as well.
Yeah. Wow.
And self-confidence. The
Of
fact
course.
that even if you don't win, you manage to produce something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what we would do is, especially any entrants that are from schools, will encourage the school to do their own showing
Yeah.
within the school
Yeah.
system.
That's beautiful.
But you know, I think that the one of the spin-offs or one of the benefits that we can definitely say will come from this is that you'll have so many new voices being able to weigh in on what it's like to access mental health services, struggle with mental health during the pandemic, but just giving their perspective from all over the country. And that alone is something that will help in the inequity that you're talking about with
Yes,
the team.
and it's young people speaking to
Yeah.
other young people, and so we don't have people like us who are trying to tell them, they're telling us what
Yeah.
their
That's
concerns
true.
are, and that opens up many doors for us as professionals, as people observing to see, oh, this is an issue.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So it's between the ages of 15 to 22. You might have a different category because you will have younger people who would want to issue their voices as well.
Yeah.
The deadline is the end of September.
To register. So
register.
the submission date is
Yeah.
after
Okay.
that.
All right.
So-
And you could be a part of this. Excellent. It's going to be a video. Your content must be good. You could use props.
5 to 8 minutes.
5 to 8 minutes. All right. Who knows? It might just be you who could be the lucky winner and can be aired as well. Ms. Kathy, thank you so very much. Of course, Jamie, thank you so very much for joining us this morning and telling us all about this as we look forward to Mental Health Day.
All right.
Thank you. All right, so we're about to take our final break of the morning. When we come back, we will be wrapping things up. Stay with us. We will be